Big Munchies are a monthly event that we hold, and we invite business owners, usually successful business owners, to come in and share their experience. Because not all of you might always want to be employed, you might consider self-employment of the future. So if you're interested, you can come along to any of them, and the free pizza is just an added bonus at the end. The Centre for Enterprise are here. We're based at the college down in Goodleyburn building, and we're here to help students who are maybe considering self-employment of the future. We also run other competitions and other events, and hopefully your lecturer will keep you up to date with these. Ben Scringer is from the building workshop. Ben studied architecture at Dundee, qualified in 2008, and he set up the building workshop with his wife Rosemary. They are involved, there is a design and build company, and they have designed and built everything from kitchen extensions, houses, to hen huts.
Yeah.
He's actually a finalist in the Princess Scottish Youth Business Trust National Awards, so you'll hear in November how he gets on there. So I'd just like to hand you over to Ben, who's going to tell you a little bit about his business journey.
Yes, good afternoon everyone. My name is Ben, and I started a company called Building Workshop, and this is my story. So I did it all with my wife Rosemary. I say behind every man there's a woman, and Rosemary's that person. Building Workshop. Now, you all laugh at me and for saying, putting a slide saying cool dudes. But I think it's really important when you're growing up at university, college, whatever, doing apprenticeships, that you have someone that you really look up to. Jamie Oliver was someone I always thought when I was little. I hated cooking, and it wasn't until Jamie Oliver started cooking on the telly and I thought, well, he made it approachable, and I thought that was really clever. Lewis Hamilton, another very successful young person, he just keeps on going and going and going. I think it's another inspirational person. Harry Potter's girlfriend, she's quite hot, and she's very successful. My biggest inspiration when I was growing up was my father, and you might sit there thinking, God, cringe, but he was, he really was an inspiration. And then my dad. My dad's a farm manager in Angus Glens, growing all the cereals, cattle, and potatoes. And growing up on a farm, it lets you, it opens your eyes. You don't just grow up on a farm and be a farmer. On a farm, you have to be a plumber, an electrician, a vet, a joiner. There's a huge, great variation of different subject areas. And this is me, probably, I don't know how old I am there. It's a really great place to grow up. And as I grew up, me and my brother used to come home from school clothes off, dirty clothes on, overalls on, filled our pockets up with digestive biscuits, and we were way outside. And we used to go and spend all our time in the farm workshop and come up with contraptions like that. An old go-kart made out of wheelbarrow wheels, bits off potato machinery, and an old generator from the scrapyard. And it really gave me a good hands-on approach to going about things. And that's the farm there, right in the middle of nowhere. And living on a farm, I love nothing better than all the machinery and everything that went with it. And to this day, I love getting a phone call from Dad at 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning saying, I'm short of a man, come and help me. So Rose and I both went to school locally, different schools until we were at high school, and then we both went off to university. I didn't really enjoy school that much, but Dad always said to stick in. But whilst I was at school, I always loved anything to do with building things, going back to the workshop at home, that real hands-on approach, and building sites, anything with a yellow digger and a couple of flashing lights and a good crane. It made me get quite excited. My granny was an architect, and I suppose there was always a little bit of me that wanted to be an architect. But at school I was told, you'll never be an architect, by this little teacher. Which doesn't go down very well, but I just got my head down and I thought, well, I'll show her. And that's what I did. I've got a little problem, and that's why I didn't really enjoy school. And it's this thing called dyslexia. And I can't spell it. I don't know who invented it, because they're a bit of a plonker for making spelling something like that for dyslexic people who can't spell. I left school with no higher English and no higher maths. we managed to get A's in everything else, in all the practical subjects. And that's how I managed to get into university. The funny thing is, all the world's most famous architects, most of them are all dyslexic. This is an old guy, one of the proper old timers, the Corbusier, he was dyslexic. Mies van der Rohe, also dyslexic. Smoking not that cool, I don't think anymore. An Italian architect learns the piano. And here's me, looking a bit of a mess, never mind. This is me doing my thesis at university. And for someone like me, absolute nightmare. You get this A4 page, a brief to go and write whatever you have to write about, and you have to write goodness how many thousands of words. And so I couldn't figure out how I was going to do this. So in my bedroom at home, I got some old fencing wire and stole a heap of Mum's clothes pegs. And got all my thoughts up on this washing line from one side of the room to another, and pinned it all up, and as you can see, just drew the whole thing rather than writing it. And then, I shouldn't say it, but Rosemary and I had the task of converting it from Ben's scribbles and language into written English for university. So I went off to university and I was very lucky. I kind of landed on my feet from not being, not getting on that well at school and academic things. I could manage to go to university and take what I'd learned from when I was very young, going home from school and getting overalls on and going into the workshop and making things. I managed to take that hands-on approach and adapt it directly to my university course. It's me back in the workshop at home building I decided in my last year of university I was going to build a building. I wasn't going to graduate from university and just hand in a little wooden model. I thought, this is go all out and make a one-to-one building. So my project was all about primary school classroom for the future in the Small Isles off the west coast of Scotland, and it needed to be a classroom that could be lifted on and off the ferries and plonked on the pier. So it was based on a shipping container that popped out like a jack-in-the-box. So I decided I'd make it, so I did that. In your third year or fourth year, you have to do a placement year when you do architecture. And I spent the summer working for Dad at home and farming, hadn't really got my finger out and written written CVs to everyone like all my classmates were doing and getting jobs. So I thought, right, you'll have to get on with this. So I went down to the art shop and bought the biggest piece of red paper I could, like 10 sheets, and the biggest marker pen I could, and wrote on it, "Please may I have a job? Keen and able," and my mobile phone number and my name. Sent it off to all the world's biggest practices. And that was on the Monday. On the Friday, I had phone calls from a couple of these big practices, and by the following Monday I was at interviews in London. And I was very lucky enough to get a placement job with Norman Foster, who is one of the biggest international architects there are. And it was really like a duck out of water. I was taken from a hillbilly up in Angus Glens. I used to rather sit in a teleporter or a tractor into the middle of London. But it was great. They always used to say simplicity is the key to good design. I think that's a really good thing to remember. So everything in the world has been designed. You look in this room and someone's designed the overhead projector, the seats, the chairs, the flooring, everything someone's had to think about. This is a picture of New York. And when you can look in this room and see all the different components, all the chairs and everything. But then look at a cityscape. Look at, you could never even count all the windows in there. Every single window there has been designed, it's been manufactured, it's been brought to site. A joiner's had to fit it on site. Think of all the light bulbs in there. Think of all the thousands of miles of copper piping in there for all the plumbing. It's just the built environment is a huge thing. Looking at that, Rose and I thought, well, we can't really go wrong with starting our own company. So, in our first year of business, we won a Shell Livewire Grand Ideas Award and had to make a short video. And with that, we won a £1,000 prize, which we invested in building information modelling, which is a 3D computer package for drawing buildings. And it's gone from architecture drawings have gone from a draftsman on a drawing board to 2D AutoCAD. I don't know if any of you have used on a computer. Now it's, you know, you model the actual building and then take the drawings from the we were lucky in our first year also to get featured in the Architect's Journal, which is, you know, the architect's newspaper, the Farmers Weekly, if you like, of architecture. And that was about my chartership. We were also, through that, we got into the top 40 young companies in the UK. Now, our office, we have an approach to our whole system in our office. We have a system called the tea and cake system. So if one of you were to come to us and say, I fancied a new office or a new house or whatever, we have a whole series of tea and cake meetings throughout the whole design and build process, so the client can go off to work and make the money to build whatever we're building or designing. It takes making the whole, like Jenny Oliver has done to food, making the whole system approachable. We're very lucky, we're working on an awful lot of projects. We've sort of gone from south of, you know, the French Alps, and we've done a conversion of a Georgian townhouse in London, stripped it all, demolished the whole of the inside and filled it with steel to make it a big contemporary space. And then more locally to home, we're doing new build houses, big agricultural buildings, you know, the fancy kitchen extensions full of steel and zinc roofs and all these kind of things. One day I hope that our office will be as big and as fancy as the one I worked in London. I wouldn't like it to look over the Thames, it might be a bit better if it looked over the Tay. But you know, we really want to get there. And I'd like to be able to win awards for my buildings. School or college is great. I think it's really important, like I did, to forget that nagging teacher that said you must get your higher English and your higher maths to get off to university. Focus on what you're good at and do well at that, and what you enjoy, and you'll get there. And again, another thing my dad used to say, the world is your oyster. And I still don't understand what it means, but it you know, it really is, you know, it's there. If you want to do something, your business or whatever, you just got to go for it. I think that's another huge advantage we've got nowadays. You don't, a company doesn't just have to rely on a livery on the side of a van or on a shop. You really have, you can really free marketing, you know, digital marketing, which is all free. Just go for it and make your Facebook page, and it's incredible what, you know, the power of it. And there we go, back to the beginning. That's my wee story of what we've done.